This is so amazing to be able to talk about football the way that, of course, sorry about adjustment on the fly. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to see it. It's refreshing. It's amazing. And it's Champions League, man. There's no other way to put it. It was just an amazing and dramatic way to see things. And I'll start out with Arsenal and Bayern Munich. Arsenal and Bayern Munich, well, there are people that got upset at me in the Caribbean because I basically said that Bayern Munich's the bigger club. They are, and it showed today. And they played like the bigger club. They played with more purpose, with more understanding of the situation in the moment. They understood exactly what they had to do against a basically hapless Arsenal side. That in the first half I was waiting for them to do something. Yeah, they showed maybe a little bit more clarity, but Bayern understood what they had to do. It wasn't pretty for Bayern, and I even mentioned it at one point when Harry Kane. I'm observing Harry Kane and seeing what Harry Kane is doing, and it was a very un-Harry Kane like performance. And why do I say that? Because, of course, you're more accustomed to seeing Harry Kane inside of the area, looking to finish, looking to define, looking to get that final touch. He was not there. He was more working with the collective, trying to recover balls, trying to keep the ball in play, trying to keep the player alive, create a second ball, things of that nature. That was more to the benefit of the collective and everybody else to really fend off Arsenal, which they did relatively well. It was a very meek performance by Arsenal. Yeah, they had more possession. You can talk about XG and everything you want. Oh yeah, no. It came down to an attitude, and you know what? It was encapsulated to a certain extent in that very last sequence of the match. Bukayo Saka gets the ball, wants to play quickly. He's desperate. He's nervous. He doesn't know exactly what to do with the ball, so he ends up playing it quickly. Oh, it goes out of bounds. So it'll be a corner. Goes, gets the ball, retrieves the ball, ends up being in the corner, and all of a sudden it's a little floater to the near post. Nobody's there. Match is over. And in a whimper, Arsenal's Champions League run comes, coming to I don't know if you can even say to a screeching halt, just boom, 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 that type of thing. Just an absolute whimper of a finish for Arsenal. But you saw that through the entire match. Who's going to step up and be the leader? Who's the one that's going to pull through in these situations? Who's the one that's going to say, hey, I'm in charge, give me the ball right now? I never saw that. Never saw that from Arsenal. From Bayern, you saw it in spurts. Mazraoui at one point down the left-hand side creates a dangerous opportunity. Of course, down that left side is where everything's created. Eventually, Joshua Kimmich comes in and scores the only goal of the match, which was enough. And yes, did Bayern suffer? Yes, but you as a big club, understand this. As a team, you have to know how to suffer. And it's not me saying it. It's been said throughout. Even Andre Lunin, of course, I'll get to that a little bit later. He says the teams that win have to know at times when to suffer. Maybe they're not the best team, but they are the stronger team upstairs. And Bayern ended up being the stronger team mentality-wise. Arsenal, I don't see it. Again, you can talk about different runs and different spaces and different this and this and that, but these two matches came down to intangibles such as mentality, such as fortitude, such as attitude, such as winning, being accustomed to winning and being accustomed to be facing adverse moments on a consistent basis and more often than not overcoming them. So what do? Arsenal, there were very little ideas from Mikel Arteta. There wasn't much that Arsenal did that you said, oh, they're going to equalize. You never had that inspiration. You never had that from Arsenal. Well, Pep Guardiola was talking, so I had to listen, right? Anyway, going back and finishing up on Arsenal, if you, I mean, the statistics aren't going to tell you much other than it was even at one point. It was something that was given. It was something that was obvious that if Arsenal weren't spot on in terms of their finishing, nothing much was going to happen. And Bayern only need one. Bayern always needed only one, especially at home, to be able to come through and come away with a semifinal ticket. And it'll be very interesting. Switching over to Real Madrid. You know what? Hold on. Let me give you this information. And I'll say it in 34 attempts, 64% in terms of having the ball, They attacked incessantly. I think it was something like even worse than I thought. 120-9. That's how many times Manchester City went wave after wave after wave after wave after wave after wave after wave during the 120 minutes. Almost an attack per minute, if you want to break it down that way. 18-1 corners. Almost doubling in terms of ball movement. Almost, well, surpassing them in recoveries. Everything else. I mean, all these factors. I mean, you look at them, and when you see these statistics, you would say, "Well, this team just absolutely mopped the opposition." Not true. Real Madrid find a way. Rodri says it after the post match in the mix zone after the match, saying, "You know what? We just didn't do enough." Because against Real Madrid, you have to do 100 times more. And I've said it before. If you're ahead City were behind 1-0, they equalize. It's still not enough. Because Real Madrid is a team. There was a journalist, of course. He said it in a figurative standpoint, so don't start saying that I said this. There was a couple of journalists, one from Chile, that ends up going and saying, Real Madrid is a team that you have to shoot 10 times in order to make sure. And then make sure you put another 2 in them because they could get back up and still beat you. Obviously, he said that figuratively. You have to beat them 4, and if you're ahead 4, just in case, put a 5th one in them. And City didn't do that. Real Madrid in Champions League is a completely different beast than any other team you will ever face. This is their tournament. I mean, they're on the doorstep of winning possibly a 15th Champions League. So they've won basically more Champions Leagues than all of England. So let's just keep that in mind for anyone who wants to start giving me any arguments. Now, I'm not a Madrid fan, and I'm going to sound like a Madrid fan, but I really honestly don't give a shit. So it's a team that knows how to suffer. Again, it's a team that knows how to suffer. It's a team that knows how to absorb pressure. They live pressure every single day, from training to going home. Their commute from driving home to going to practice to going to a friend's house to going and eating dinner and what clothes they wear and whatever else they have to deal with. That is the pressure that they have to live with every day as a Real Madrid player. Let's keep that in mind. They are the news cycle in Spain. Just like I've said that about Argentine teams with Boca and River, more Boca than River as of late. They are the news cycle in Spain, in Madrid in particular. And they know how to absorb that pressure. Now, did City play an awful game? No, City played a marvelous game. City played spectacular football. They just faced Real Madrid. They just faced Real Madrid, and Madrid won like Madrid. And Madrid won how Madrid can win. I mean, Madrid can blow your doors off. But then they can also hold on for dear life and go to penalties and still go through. And the worst thing about it, I'm talking about from a City standpoint, is that Madrid don't get rattled. You hit them once and they'll take the blow. They'll take the shot. You hit them twice, they'll take the shot. 3, 4, 5, 6, they'll take the shots as much as they can. Look, I'll put it to you this way. I'll give it to you in a chronological order. Antonio Rudiger commits the mistake that ends up being Kevin De Bruyne's goal. I don't know if it's a mistake. It's just not a strong enough clearance, I guess you could say as well. He's on the ground, sprawled. He tries to clear it out, and it just lands right in front of De Bruyne, who just smashes the ball past Lunin. Didn't get rattled. Why do I say that? Because later on in the match, Tony Rudiger is the one that ends up scoring the penalty kick that helps Real Madrid advance. You know, how many ghosts and demons and goblins and you know, things end up really haunting you after making a mistake like that when it's your turn to finalize, you know, to be that kick, that taker that helps you advance or not into the next round. So that's a strong mentality. Luka Modric misses the first penalty kick. Any other team might have succumbed, or many other teams would have succumbed to that conclusion. Hey, by the way, we're done. If our former Ballon d'Or, if our leader, if our captain, if the guy that's helping us come through does this, what's left for the rest of us? Meanwhile, Kevin De Bruyne, I don't think Rodri took a penalty kick if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. And obviously Erling Haaland couldn't. Erling Haaland completely disappeared in this series. Erling Haaland, now the questions start, well, yeah, great, you can score 30, 35, 40 goals a season, 50 goals a season in all competitions, 60 goals a season. But when it counts, where are you? Especially in Europe. That ends up being the big question mark for Erling Haaland, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which side of the argument you end up being on. Rodrigo Goya is just sensational today. Federico Valverde ends up being the man of the match. Again, I mentioned Tony Rudiger. I mentioned Luka Modric, of course. He misses the penalty kick and everything's, hey, all right, cool, no problem. As if nothing happened. As if he scored, basically. And then Andre Lunin comes in and then he makes his first save. It was great to hear what Lunin had to say, though, because Lunin goes, says, I'm tired, man. I'm drained. I don't know how my teammates do this. But they ran for 120 minutes. I just stood there and I'm mentally drained, but I still was able to do my part. Of course, he had a huge part to do with this, with the penalty save he made. He said, look, I didn't win the penalty shootout. My teammates did because they helped me prep for this. Tony Rudiger, again, being a very important part of that penalty kick, not just for the one he scored, but everything else. He said, Rudiger helped me because obviously, having played at Chelsea, he was very familiar or somewhat familiar with many, especially Mateo Kovacic, and the save that Lunin made against him. He said there was one specific gamble that he had to take because he wasn't sure which one was going to be the one that took the penalty kick down the middle. And he guessed right, which was Bernardo Silva, who just kind of, I don't know, it was a back pass, a tap back. I don't know. I mean, it was completely weak, but he stepped up. Next man up mentality, and that's been the entire season. I've said it on Sportsmax many times. It's been that next up man up mentality throughout the season. Remember, no Eder Militao. He was on the bench today, but you're not going to put Eder Militao, who's still no way close to being 100% in a situation like this. David Alaba still maybe a month or two away. Maybe he could be an option in the Champions League final. I strongly doubt it. All the injuries that they've had, and every single player that steps in has performed. Every single one of them. I can't think of one that hasn't. Even what makes this even more impressive is the fact that they did it without a number 9. They've done it without a number 9 the entire season. They've done it without a Karim Benzema. Many are saying, well, they're going to bring Mbappe. Yeah, well, that's coming in the future. But Madrid, they did it without a number 9. They did it with players out wide. Of course, yeah, Vinicius and Rodrigo and Jude Bellingham and Toni Kroos and Federico Valverde and Camavinga, who stepped up in a big way. Tchouaméni was out and he was missed, let's be honest. But Dani Carvajal, Nacho, those names of old that you end up saying, oh my God, without Cristiano, without this guy, they would have never won it. Well, they're still winning it. They're still getting there. They're still competing for those Champions Leagues while Benzema and Ronaldo aren't in their continent. So, is it the players or is it the jersey? There's something about it. Now, I'm not a Real Madrid fan, nor will I ever be. But you gotta respect. I mean, there's no these types of matches. All you have to do is, chapeau mon ami. What a performance! Cojones, man. They played with balls today. They played just extremely courageous football. Now, that's something that Diego Simeone refused to do because that was part of their DNA, and he decided to abandon his DNA, and now all of a sudden it's a team that's mired somewhere in mediocrity and no longer able to make that challenge. When the team had to defend, he decides not to. He decides to just let things go and let things slide and try and attack more and defend less, and you lose that essence of what Atletico Madrid was. And meanwhile, Carlo Ancelotti, Davide Ancelotti mentioned it the other day, saying, look, he's willing to do whatever to win. He's willing to defend, he's willing to attack, he's willing to change his strategies in the effort to get the victory. And today you saw that. Because if Madrid went full force the entire time, if they played how Madrid plays, it would have been disastrous. Because City would have had more spaces, City would have had more angles to attack with, City would have had a lot more opportunities that maybe not more opportunities, but more opportunities in front of goal, and therefore more opportunities to score, and therefore maybe even more scoring. So Madrid knew when to close down, hunker down, but they also know when to go out and defend and counterattack, which is a very important facet of it. So it's a bit of a chameleon when it comes to tactics, Carlo Ancelotti, and that's why, again, he ends up being one of the top coaches in the world. There's no doubt about it. And he's done it quietly. He's done it silently. Maybe not with all the fanfare of Pep Guardiola. Maybe with not all the media hype of Jurgen Klopp. But he's done it. And that's what needs to be commended. The ability of Carlo Ancelotti to adapt to different situations and have his team do so. And not only that, execute properly. And today, they did it. 8 total attempts. 8. Attacks, times they attacked, 6 times less, 1/6 of what City did. Again, I have my notes here because I wanted to give you more information. Only 1 corner kick compared to 18 for City. They closed off angles. They were very aggressive. They were cutting players off. And of course, taking advantage of the one opportunity they have, Kyle Walker ends up being out of position a bit. All of a sudden, Rodrigo, not once, but twice, after the second one, he ends up scoring. So that ends up being the finishing of a Champions League that you saw Real Madrid, again, their pedigree. You can have all the petrodollars in the world, but then when you have pedigree and you put it on the table, smack dab and say, here I am, win, lose, or draw, more often than not, that pedigree, that spirit, that competitive fire that Real Madrid have had throughout their history ends up really coming to the fray. So that's basically it. Now we have a European Clásico. Speaking of Clásicos, which Real Madrid will play this weekend against Barcelona. European Clásico against Bayern Munich in the semis. That's going to be quite interesting. But as of right now, you got to give the Merengues the advantage in terms of winning a 15th Champions League. Right now. Because many were talking about this encounter being what was it called? An anticipated final. So we'll see how anticipated it was. And more importantly, who's going to beat Real Madrid that are remaining in the Champions League? Maybe one. Maybe, just maybe, for the sake of more bossity, why not? Make it Real Madrid PSG with Kylian Mbappé facing them in London before he ends up joining them later on this summer. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you soon.